Welcome, Councillor. I declare the meeting open and we start with the Civic Affirmation. We gather today to duly and faithfully carry out our duties to the best of our judgment and ability for the advancement of this district and the benefit of all of our community and fellow citizens. And the Couron District Council members acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land and waters, the Meningie people, on whose ancestral lands on which we meet today. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of Aboriginal people to country, and pay our respect to elders past and present. We also extend that respect to all First Nation people. Thank you. Councillors, move to item 1. Apologies, we have none, but I note Councillor Leng is on a Zoom today. Item 1 is acknowledgements. Councillors, I'd like to acknowledge the passing of Dean Elliott of Canalpin. Dean started in the Emergency Fire Service in 1961 and that morphed into many things, but the Canalpin Downs Firefighting Association among many. He was always ahead of the curve. When I read his eulogy, he was always thinking ahead on what we need in the future, not reacting to the fire today. And in particularly, and perhaps in involvement with council, as I can remember, with bushfire prevention when that was in its formative stages. I was reading, he started with the blitzes, the Bedfords. He would have been pretty safe with the Bedfords. They would have got too hot getting to the fire. Enos, Land Cruisers, the whole lot. And it culminated in him being awarded the Australian Fire Service Medal in 2007. So I just acknowledge that Dean's passing in the minutes, please. Councillors, we move to confirmation of minutes of the ordinary meeting on the 19th of April 2022. Could someone move that way, please? Councillor Rountree has moved. Is there a seconder?
Mr Mayor.
Councillor Bland is the seconder. Councillor Leng, yes?
Changes required.
Changes, what change? I have received for you in just the recent few minutes, we've received there should be changes to the minutes. Is that right?
I'm recommending 2 changes to 2 actions, both relating to conflict of interest, where the recorded statements of the members has not been recorded specifically in accordance with the conflict of interest legislation.
Could you read out what you would like amended? Now at the permission of the mover and the seconder, or otherwise you'll go to a amendment. Yeah, just read out what you'd like, councillor.
First one is action 73 of 22, where, according to the minutes, Councillor Hill declared an actual conflict when in fact she did not. She only declared an interest. She did not elaborate on her interest in the motion. She did not state that she would stay in the room, but did so. But she did confirm that she would not vote. Now, I've just penned some wording here that Councillor Hill declared an interest, but failed to elaborate further other than she would not vote. Section 74 and other conflict of interest sections do require the member to actually, for legal reasons, declare their type of interest and what forms that interest. That did not happen. The other matter is 76 of 22. Councillor Arthur did correctly declare his type of interest and as a material conflict of interest. He did clearly state that he was a director and member of a governing, he did clearly state that he was a community representative of Tora and the chair of the committee. That is in compliance with section 74 of the Local Government Act. However, unfortunately, what was recorded that he was just a member If he was just a member of a club and not, in fact, a member of the governing body of that club, he wouldn't have invoked 74. Well, I propose that the minutes be correctly adjusted to read that he was a director and member of the governing body of a body corporate, being the incorporated body of the Tintinara Oval and Recreational Association, Inc. Thank you.
I'm going to ask the two councillors. Councillor Hill, do you believe that if you were to make the councillors' changes, that would more accurately declare your position or what you said?
I think that is what I said. I said I declare an interest and I will not be voting. I think that was my words. I think the recording will probably reflect that.
And Councillor Arthur, do you think?
Because that's exactly what happened.
So what Councillor Ling is proposing is what you said?
I don't think, do you really have to?
Microphone, please.
When you defer a conflict of interest, you have to declare what it's for.
Through you,
To
Chair.
the CEO.
So with Councillor Hill's particular one, if the actual type of conflict of interest is not declared, then by her actions, it was an actual conflict of interest. So she decided not to vote, but stay in the room. So that's an actual conflict of interest. So there is nothing, in a sense, where the minutes don't reflect that. With yours, Councillor, we are of the opinion that it adequately reflects what happened at the meeting.
If these minutes were required to go to a legal court, they would not stand water. You may wish to seek legal advice.
The councillor, the minutes are a formal record of decisions made at council and committee meetings. They are not a transcript of the meeting. I've got Councillor Taylor with hopefully a question, because I'm going to go back to the mover and seconder in a second.
Through you, Mayor, has anyone actually checked the recording?
As anyone, as in at the executive level?
Anyone actually checked the recording?
We haven't.
That's where I got the wording from.
Councillor, just, you haven't got the floor.
Sorry.
So, Bridget.
We haven't checked the recording yet.
Question?
Councillor Bland's got a question.
The question is to you, Mr Mayor. Is it possible that this lay on the table until staff have a chance to review this towards the end of the meeting? I know it's a little bit unusual given that we're in the middle of confirming minutes, but to put this to bed, it would be good for maybe the CEO to have at least had a look, or perhaps Mr Summers.
We have to move the confirmation of the minutes at the beginning of the meeting or later, during the meeting. Okay. Councillor Rountree, you are the mover though.
Just a technical question. What does it matter? I mean, the conflict of interest were declared, the meeting went on. Why is this suddenly an issue? Like, I'm not understanding why we're making a fuss about this.
You'll have to ask the Councillor Ling that, or I can ask Councillor Ling that. Councillor?
Why the importance?
Why the importance?
It is a requirement of Section 74 of what is to be quoted by the member. They must declare what type of conflict of interest they have, what causes that conflict, for the purpose of the meeting. Councillor Arthur correctly did so, but the minutes do not reflect what he spoke. And if it goes to court,
Why would it go to court?
if it goes to court for any legal reason, then there could be problems for the council for not recording correctly.
I'm in the hands of council. I've got a mover and a seconder. Are they prepared to, at this stage, accept Councillor Ling's adjustments?
No.
Councillor?
I'm not prepared to accept it. I don't think it's relevant. Like, I don't think it's worth.
Well,
I think it's worth it. I mean, it happened. It's fine.
so
Unless
I'm
it particularly aggrieves someone.
I'm informed that from the executive and the governance officer that they're not material to accepting the minutes.
Then I will move ahead with my motion.
Well, at this stage, you haven't spoken yet, but I'm looking at, well, the mover, if the mover won't change it, we are, all I could do, councillor, all I would accept, councillor Ling, is an amendment. So I've got a valid motion on the floor now, which the mover won't accept your changes. It's not as informed, it's not material to the accepting of the minutes.
It is, but anyway.
So do you wish to move an amendment or not?
I move that the minutes be accepted with the amendments to the two actions quoted, action 73.22 and 76, and 76.22.
Okay, have I got a seconder? Councillor Yench is a seconder. Do you want to speak to this, Councillor Yench?
No.
Ling?
No.
Oh, you, no, not you.
I'd second it for debate.
Councillor Ling, you wish to speak to your amendment?
I think I've spoken enough. There is a legal obligation in accordance with legislation of what needs to be recorded. That has failed to do so. That is a falsification of records, in my belief.
Mr Mayor, question.
Councillor Bland has a question.
My question is around the comments from Councillor Ling about the legal requirement, and I do not wish to put the council at any form of risk in not seeking this. Now, I take the advice that we've been given, advice perhaps recorded on behalf of the council so that it goes into the minutes.
The advice I've received is that the changes being sought are not material to receive
I'd like that
the
statement,
minutes.
if possibly, being put in there, and that is the advice that has been given to full council at this point in time, to the best of anyone's ability. So, on that, then,
Okay, was your question?
that is my question, thank you.
If you wish to
And
seek
at least-
legal advice, you could, but
Well, that's a full council decision. My question is, could that statement be put in?
it can be, I think. Anyone else wish to speak for or against the amendment? And I'm on the amendment, councillors. Councillors, please. I'm just waiting perhaps for it all to come up on the screen, to be fair to those that are not in the room. That reflects your motion, councillor Ling.
Sorry, I can't see it. You have to read it out, please.
You cannot see it at all?
No.
Can you share your screen or can we share our screen? Can't share the screen. So basically, councillor, you wish to minutes be accepted with the following changes to minutes 07322. You want to change to Councillor Hill declared an interest but failed to elaborate further other than she would not vote. And minute 07622, Deputy Mayor Councillor Arthur declared a material conflict of interest due to his membership of Tintinara Oval and Recreation and left the meeting at 4:01, but you want that changed too. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Arthur, declared a material conflict of interest in that he is a director, a member of the governing body of a corporate, being the incorporated body of Tintinara Oval and Recreation Association Inc. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak for or against the amendment? I'm going to go with Councillor Taylor first.
Through you, Mayor, I'm going to speak against it. It's my recollection that Councillor Hill did declare an actual conflict of interest. I think the problem may sit with Councillor Hill was sitting back from the microphone and she had her chin on her chest. My recollection is such.
Thank you. Councillor Bland.
My question is whether it is right to put in Councillor Hill declared an interest but failed to elaborate. Now that's a statement. I don't see that as an opinion. I don't understand why that would be what she did or did not do if that is an opinion, yes, sorry. Not quite sure what it's meant to be.
It would appear there's some conflict in around what Councillor Hill may have said, and Councillor, you have, I can't remember now, earlier in the debate. Can you remember? Sorry, councillors, as you know, I wasn't here.
I don't recall saying whether it was an actual perceived or...
All right, you just don't recall. That's fine. Anyone else wish to add for or against the debate, against this amendment we're in? Councillor Jentsch, you haven't spoken, you don't wish to?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I understand that there is confusion at times with these things. My recollection, as I did second this motion for the purpose of debate, my memory on this is that Councillor Hill did declare an interest and did stay in the room, but did not participate. She was not requested to furnish any further explanation other than she expressed that she felt she had a conflict. And that's my recognition of that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Otherwise, debate will be closing. Councillor Lang.
Thank you. If so desired, I am prepared to remove the word elaborate. That wording could be manipulated a little bit. But she only declared an interest. That was quite clear on the video, and she did clearly state that she would not vote. The words were not vote. She would not vote. And she did participate in the meeting.
You in closing wish to make that change?
If that's desirable.
Up to you, you're the mover. So it now reads, permission of the seconder. Councillor Hill declared an interest and indicated she would not vote on the item.
Correct.
I believe she did.
Okay. Debate is actually closed. This is an amendment, councillors.
I actually think it was conflict.
Those voting for the amendment, please show. Those voting against the amendment, please show. The amendment is lost. Those voting for the amendment was Councillors Arthur and Ling. And those voting against the amendment was Councillors Bland, Hill, Rountree, Taylor, Qualman, Jentsch and Simmons.
Mr Mayor, just make a quick comment.
A question, please, because we now move back to the original motion, actually.
Section 75A of the Local Government Act dealing with actual and perceived conflicts of interest says that when you declare a actual or perceived conflict of interest at a meeting, the member's name, the nature of the interest as described by the member shall be recorded.
Thank you.
And that's 75A, not 74.
74 is the same.
Councillor Taylor, I'm back on the motion, which is just the receipt of the minutes at this stage.
Question, Mayor.
Question.
Are we to take the transcript, an unconfirmed transcript from any meeting, given the problems we have had with microphones, etc., over the top of the people in the room who did the recording?
Well, council's made a decision not to adjourn this, to listen to the transcript, and I think it appears that there is some, I think, ambiguity around the verbal of it. I've already stated from the executive position that these words are not material to receiving the minutes. not material to receive in the minutes, so.
Thank you.
So that's the way I would see it. Councillor Rountree moved the confirmation of the minutes and Councillor Bland seconded. Is there anyone else wishes to debate that? Councillor Rountree, you'll close.
Closed.
All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. It's carried with all but Councillor Leng voting for the motion, and Councillor Leng voted against it. Thank you, councillors. Now, item 3 is an adjourned business item, Safe Environments, Children and Other Vulnerable People Policy Review. Is there someone prepared to move that recommendation, councillors? Councillor Rountree. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bland, you're the seconder again. Councillor Rountree, you wish to speak?
I have a question.
Yes, same, yep.
Just with in the policy where it says financial implications, do we need to, and I'm not sure who pays for this, but do we need to put in or consider the actual costs of getting those children and police checks? There is a cost to that. So I know we've got a cost for the training, or are the staff or people who are working with the children required to pay for their own? So just, I wasn't sure whether that had been covered off in there. It just wasn't clear.
Just allocated training budget for the mandatory notification training for the 3 council officers.
Yeah.
What
So
else
do
you-
we, when we ask staff when we ask staff to have checks done, are we as council doing the checks on behalf of the staff and paying for it, or are staff required to pay for their own?
No, through you, Mayor, we pay for that training.
Right, so what, the actual checks?
So it's not, we are not doing actual checks, but we have a responsibility if we have a doubt about a particular situation to progress that.
Well, it says in the document through you, Mayor, that they're required to have these checks done. Who pays for that?
Council would pay for those.
Right, should that be in the financial implications?
All of our activities, volunteer programs, we would include these type of costs within the necessary funding to deliver those programs. So it's an included cost.
Through you, Mayor, and if it was more than, say, $3,000 to $5,000 a year, I don't think, we don't know.
Yeah.
Councillor Bland, you got a question? Or
It's,
as a seconder, you can speak.
I'll just speak in that case. No, I don't have a question. In my experience, for what it's worth, in this area is that normally the staff member would, because they have to fill out the documentation and apply for it, and then they would, on receipt of, for example, they're working with children or police check, would be reimbursed on presentation. And that's fairly much a government way of doing it.
Through you, Chair, it would just depend if it was available, not if, most times we try to pay for what staff need in terms of mandatory training. If a staff member chose to do it the other way, Councillor Bland, like you're suggesting, we would reimburse.
Councillor Taylor.
To you, Mayor, so if it's a requirement of a job role, so if it's stipulated as a requirement of a job role, then I would consider that the employer would pay.
Anyone else wish to enter the debate? Councillor Rountree, you've probably reserved your position, I'll take it as, so you'll close.
I've closed, got no more to add. That's
You want to close it? So there you go, councillors. The recommendation is that council adopt the Safe Environments, Children and Other Vulnerable People Policy as amended. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Item 4, minute action list, councillors. Councillor Rountree.
I have a motion in regards to one of the action lists, the minute action list. Should I do it now or wait to motions without notice? That's my question.
You want a motion in relation to the minute action list, which is a recording of a previous decision.
Yes, correct. Well, it's only in as much that, should I talk about what I'm thinking?
Just raise the issue in a broader sense, please.
Okay, in a broader sense, 17020 regarding the feasibility study being presented to council in September 22, I wanted to move that this date be moved to January 23, only because we will be in caretaker mode, and I'm thinking that this possibly needs to be something that the new council are presented with more so than at the end of our tenure. So I was just going to say, can that date be changed on the list?
So, councillor, I think I could say we can't change it now, but I would accept a notice, a motion without notice.
Okay, yeah.
Just wait a second.
We can change it.
So, councillors, you feel, if there's any other councillors object to that idea of that review date being changed to the date, what do you say?
Well, January 23, when the new
January
council meets in
23.
23.
Any other councillors think that's an issue? Otherwise, it can be done administratively.
Thank you.
Okay, questions? I'm in questions from the minute action list, councillors. Councillor Bland.
It's 04019, connection of potable water to Wellington East. How far along are we at the moment?
I'm going to refer to where we're at with the study from SA Water. Matt, could you just upgrade members on Wellington East Water Scheme, where we're at with that, please?
Yeah, through the Mayor, we've engaged SA Water to undertake a condition assessment of the network. They have yet to commence that work on the ground, but they have been formally engaged. And once they have undertaken that condition assessment, we'll know more about what works may need to be done to the infrastructure before either SA Water are able to take the infrastructure on, or what council would be required to do to upgrade to a potable scheme if that's the way we chose to go. Timing, I'm not sure.
Follow-up question on that. And I might be misreading or mishearing what you're saying, is that formally engaged always tells me there's dollars at the end of it. Are SA Water charging us?
SA Water are charging us, yes. For any condition assessment of infrastructure, there would be a charge.
So,
Sort of idea of the figure?
for them to even consider them taking over, they needed this report. I understood that perhaps it may have been better for them to do the report rather than an independent body, shall we say.
I agree with that. I'm just interested in how much they're charging us.
I don't know, can
Network
you
they
say
get
that?
money
Yeah,
out of that.
in the mid $40,000.
Thank you.
Anything else? That'll do. I am in minute action list, councillors. There being no more, move on to questions with notice. I have nil. Questions without notice, councillors. Councillor Hill.
Before I ask my question without notice, can I ask a question about clarification? I missed an item in the last meeting minutes of a completed item. Am I allowed to raise a question about?
I think you are.
Okay, so item...
Since I wasn't here, councillor, yes, I think you are.
Item 045/22 March, there were letters requesting written apology from councillors Roundtree and Taylor, which the item said it was sent on the 28th of March. Are we able to see a copy of that letter, or am I able to see a copy of that letter?
I would think you should be able to see a copy of the letter we sent.
You?
Are you asking that it circulated to all councillors, me?
No, I think the councillor's asking
I'm
to
just
see a copy
asking.
herself. That's how I would take the question, and I've given the answer. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Questions without notice, councillors? Councillor Qualman's next, and then I think Councillor Taylor. Yes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through the Chair to the Director of Roads and Infrastructure. Apparently there's been some impurities or imperfections to the base surface of Patolic Road. Can the Director of Roads and Infrastructure advise us what action's been taken to rectify, please?
This will be the new section, or
Yeah, the new
potential
section.
new section,
About
councillor?
to be sealed, yes.
About to be sealed.
Thank you.
To the Director.
Through the Mayor, the works of the stabilisation works have been completed. There were some minor surface defects in the surface that were addressed or discussed between the contractor and our capital works manager. Those minor imperfections are being addressed and reworked, and the intent is still to seal Poltalic Road pending the, I guess, outcome of those minor defects by the end of this week.
So it's all good.
All good.
Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Through you, Mayor. Regarding one of the previous, in the last meeting, I think it was a motion to move the release of internal emails. Do we have to put a motion up for the release of all whatever the internal email is that we want to discuss in public, for example? Does it have to be by motion, given that some of the legal advice we were given by Kelly D. Jones was that emails were to be considered in confidential, internal emails were to be considered in confidential?
I'm going to let the CEO have a
So through you, Mayor,
answer to that.
what we did was we got legal advice of what had to be redacted in those emails. The redacted versions have gone onto the website because the motion of council last time was that they would be put up, but we couldn't put them up in their unredacted form. So they have been redacted to ensure that people who aren't within council cannot be identified. We also made sure that there were any pronouns were also redacted to make sure that there could be no inference about he or she. So the redacted versions are up there based on the legal advice we received.
Yes, thank you for that, CEO. I wasn't actually referring to those emails.
Sorry.
I was referring to the lawyer that was in the room who mentioned that when questioned about internal emails, were they all to be considered as confidential? And she did indicate that perhaps they should be considered confidential. Therefore, if I want to discuss any other emails, those emails are not in question. Any other emails, do I have to apply by motion before I discuss the content of those emails?
Through you, Mayor, I would suggest, and I'm looking at Ash here, but if you are intending to raise issues about various emails, I would suggest that you would do that in confidential section of the meeting before a discussion could happen in the chamber, because you would possibly raise emails that you want released, and then there would be information in there that would possibly breach some confidentiality. So my suggestion, and I'm looking at Ash here, is that if that's what your intention is, you would leave it to the confidential part of our meeting today.
For supplementary question, Mayor, as a councillor, am I entitled to go through freedom of information in order to release some of those emails, or do I just do it as an internal issue?
As a councillor, I would suggest you do it as an internal issue because you have access to those emails anyway. It's not like you need to go to FOI to find an email.
Okay.
Questions without notice, councillors? Councillor Arthur.
Just got a question to the CEO. Some time ago, you said you'd received a letter back from the LGA regarding the access to rubble and the removal of native vegetation, which I'd brought up at the Limestone Coast meeting. I wonder if you could actually distribute that to the elected members and find out what's gone on with it.
For you, Mayor, can you give me a reminder, councillor, about how long ago?
Was it March?
March of this year?
Yes, I think.
We'll undertake to find that email and distribute it.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? I move on. Item 6.1, the report. My mayor's report is there. I just note the last one, we had a meeting in this building with the new leader of the opposition in the state, David Spears and Nick McBride, and was joined by invitation from Mr McBride with Southern Mallee Mayor and the CEO. Quite productive hour, I think, of general discussion in a broader sense. Councillor Rountree, your question.
According to April, the meeting with PIRSA regarding agricultural conditions in the district. What did you learn from that?
It was we instigated.
We instigated the meeting due to probably a general feeling that we as an area are not fully in the vision of PIRSA as a state bureaucracy.
Good work.
And so they agreed to this after a bit of negotiation. It was on, I think it was all Zoom at the end of the day, which we probably made our case that particularly a fair portion of this council, I'd say the North East Third, has had a pretty tough year last year. And a ordinary start, again, would put a fair bit of pressure on the area in that respect. So that was probably our general thing around that, just emphasising don't forget us, is the way I'd interpret that meeting.
Through you, Mayor, did you have cut through? Do you feel like you were heard?
I think generally they understood.
I think you always have, I wouldn't say cut through, but sometimes at least you've got to state your case, and I think...
Well done on that initiative.
Well, I wouldn't say cut through is quite the word I'd use, but in my view, particularly for the broadacre sector, Bursa is based at Struan in the southeast and a fair presence at Loxton in the Riverland, and the rest of us sort of in the middle, particularly this side of the middle, seem to sometimes not get high enough up the radar. Councillor Bland?
Mr Mayor, you attended the showcase, I believe,
Yes.
and did we learn anything from that?
So in terms of the actual AGM, Councillor Arthur did the voting as I had a medical appointment. I don't know that we, and I have raised this in the chamber before, the value of this two-day event. I'm not exactly sure we did learn anything that was revolutionary. I'm looking at the CEO, Councillor Arthur.
One showcase that I attended was on youth participation, and it was from memory Marion.
Yeah.
No,
I reckon I
so it was a presentation from young people and how they engage across council. So that, in a sense, was productive. I think scale is an issue if you were looking to translate some of those things to a council for us. But did I learn anything from it? Is probably no, but it was interesting to know that it is being done around the state.
Take homes really is what I'm looking for.
Case,
Is there
Councillor
something-
Arthur, you got anything to add about what?
Yeah, okay, I'd like to apologise. I've written the report, but I haven't put it in.
No.
Because so I will make sure I send the
So
report.
the councillor, with his next monthly report, will report that. I'm sorry, I had a medical appointment full exactly during the ordinary general meeting, so Councillor Arthur, but I think there was nothing on the agenda we felt was of any seriousness.
There was a few things that actually was a little bit surprising, mainly on climate change, that got the boot real bad.
Yeah.
One of them was 2 votes for, I think that was Prospect and some other,
Right.
and 66 against.
Councillors, I noticed that there was a lack of attendance, I think would be my polite way of wording it, at this particular one in particular. I think, as I might have stated earlier, we have a lot of people in the last 4 or 5 months that have been out on COVID leave for the 7 days, and as you know, I was the last at the normal council meeting of April, and I think that did affect, quite honest, but I would suggest that unfortunately, I think the country councils turn up twice a year to vote, and I'd have to say I don't necessarily see that from the metropolitan ones sometimes. I don't know whether it's too far or something, I don't know. What I would say is we had our Murraylands Riverlands LGA meeting at Manham last week, and I've lost my train of thought, sorry. Angela Evans did come, the CEO, and Clinton Jury, and give a presentation, and she's a very, very good speaker. But she did point out that her 2 years is nearly up, which is sort of a bit of a shame, given COVID sort of hasn't really allowed her to flower. What I might just add, while I'm on that, is the Murraylands Riverlands LGA has appointed a new Chief Executive Officer, Tim Smythe, and I thank Tim publicly for his 3 years of work in this space, but he wishes to move on, and on the 30th of June, a new Chief Executive Officer, which the association is employing as an employee now, will take place. I'm probably not at liberty to release the name as yet. Any other questions around my report? Okay. The councillors, Councillor Bland, anything you want to add?
Yes, I need to firstly put a correction in that on the 15th, I was on Zoom meetings, as I'm reliably reminded by Ashley. And I'm sure I probably was. So if that could be please corrected in there. Probably the one thing, and I have failed to do it, I met with both Councillor Hill and Councillor Lang with Senator Karen Grogan. And she did ask for some more information from Council, particularly around the barges.
Barrages, I hope you're saying.
That's the word, barrages, and anything on water issues. She would like to have the conversation. She met in Meningie on a Sunday, which probably made it particularly difficult for everyone who was invited to get there. But she had a strong interest in finding out more information about barrages, potential barrage replacement in the future, sea level rise, etc. So I had made that offer to chase that information. And I know we had position papers on it here in council, well, a position paper, but certainly stuff that had been taken to the federal government in the past, and that information still exists. I think our CEO has a copy of that in a pack the Lakeswood councillors gave her when she first came.
I got that.
Just in relation to, this is in relation to Senator Grogan, Councillor Lang, is it?
Thank you. Yes, I was just adding that Tracy Strugnall has got all that documentation, including my proposal for a weir bridge arrangement, causeway going across from Point Macleay to Point Sturt.
So, thank you. So, Senator Grogan replaced the late Senator Alex Gallagher, if I've got the name right, councillors from memory, and she did ring me, but I was unable to attend, so I'm glad you could meet with her. And I would think we probably need to, she may well be the lead senator for the Labor Party on this subject in the state, it appears, or she's showing a strong interest, so probably worthy of inviting her back some other day. Councillor Hill and then Councillor Taylor.
I would like to think we do.
Councillor Hill.
Yeah, seeing it's in my report as
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
the meeting with the senator, and as she's a federal senator, I've
Yeah.
also raised with her issues such as aged care and the need to make sure that we don't have our community aged care facilities fail at all because of the additional costs, especially COVID. We also spoke about the possibility of a new tourist route with maybe a legacy project in the way of the shifting the barrages to between Point Sturt and Rauken. So we spoke a little bit about how there needs to be a bit of a nation building discussion around that sort of thing, because it's not a one-term issue. So it's we just felt that we'll bring up a few federal issues that she may have some input on.
Councillor Taylor.
Through you, Mayor, I'm sorry, did I miss the invitation to all councillors, or was this?
I don't think it was to all councillors, Council.
Through you, Mayor, I think it came about on a late Friday afternoon.
That's right.
And I'm not sure what prompted the councillor to be there, the senator to be there on the Sunday afternoon. And I really don't know how it all eventuated. We just got a phone call to say, are you available on Sunday afternoon?
So it would be prudent, Councillor, we do invite her back if she wants to show a strong interest. And what I would say is that, the Murray-Darling plan comes up for renegotiation in 2024, and the next term of this organisation, we want to be on our toes on this particular subject.
So through you, Mayor, I mean, the barrages are of particular interest to me, especially when it comes to promoting tourism down in that area. So I'm disappointed that I missed the...
Late and unusual.
She did also meet with some other community people prior to us being there, so it wasn't just for...
Yep.
And through you, back to, on that subject, my report is that perhaps the documents that already exist in council that sort of gave a very brief, one of those 5-minute meetings you always have at Parliament House when you go, overview perhaps could be circulated out. I'm not saying they're state of the nation now, but it was a point that has been looked at for some time.
And the other point I might make is the Marylands Riverlands LGA is working through the process of our water policy statement, and I think it's probably halfway through, 2/3 through.
I think the draft is...
Draft's not far away, so watch that in your emails, which is a broader sense, I suppose, South Australian Murray-Darling Basin, if you think about it. The councils that are in that spot, statement of our position, perhaps. Councillor Bland,
I'm done.
you're done. Thank you. I move on then to Councillor Hill. Can I add anything, Councillor?
No.
No, thank you. Councillor Roundtree, your report. Want to add anything?
No, thanks, Mayor.
Okay, if there's no questions. Councillor Ling's dropped off the screen. Councillor Taylor, your report. Where are you gone? You wish to add anything?
No,
Did you find the Murray was higher than you thought when you paddled it?
certainly did. But only down to the lock zero. And then there's no movement at all.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
like
pool-
paddling across a lake all the way down to the
pool-
the Wellington.
pool level. Okay, councillors, thank you for your reports. We move on to notices of motion 711. There's a you want to move that way, councillor?
I'll move that way, thanks, Mayor.
There's a seconder to that motion. Councillor Arthur is the seconder. Councillor Roundtree, you want to speak to it?
I think what we heard today with the community club was that the benefits of sport on health, mental wellness and community is very important. The budget adjustment needed is only small, the outcomes will be big. And the rest of what I wanted to say is in the background that I wrote to that motion, and I would like to see it get up.
Okay. Seconder, want to speak at all?
I just think it's something that really needs to be done. The community will find the rest of the money, as they normally do. And the fact that it is 85% going to be used by juniors. So that's a key part of the thing. And I might declare that I have not got a conflict of interest because I have completely resigned from all committees of any shape or form. And so I'm not a volunteer for anybody anymore because of the ridiculous bloody rules that the LGA works under.
Refrain our language a little bit, councillor, sometimes. Okay. Councillor Bland.
Question.
Yeah.
And it relates to this motion and I believe the next one. And that is around, has either of the two groups come back to council having attempted to actually meet the policy?
I'm just, through you, Mayor, I'm just looking at the community coordinator. No.
Not that I'm aware of.
Are they required to? Through you? No.
My question is around whether or not we follow policy, or once we set this precedent, that is going to allow the door open for others to do the same. Because in reality, over the years, we have knocked back a lot of clubs, whether they be junior or not. And they have been junior. And I look at some of the that never come and ask for more than what they're allowed to. Now, I have great sympathy here and decide which way I go, but at the end of the day, I am worried that we're about to set a precedent.
So, councillor, I think we've had this discussion with the CEO around a tweaking of the policy in this area as well.
But the policy is not yet tweaked.
I'm aware of that.
Thank you.
Anyone else for or against this discussion? Councillor Taylor, then Councillor Yench.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm going to vote for, of course, and recommend that also as has been part of the discussions up to this point, which is that the policy is tightened up, to make it absolutely clear for anyone that's applying what the criteria is, and to effectively not bother applying if they are not able to meet that criteria, which may include extra discussions with staff before the application comes in, or extra background information by way of an information document which goes with the paperwork that they have to fill in, which leaves them in no doubt that were they not to meet the criteria, there will be no allocation of funds.
Yench, then Hill.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm very sympathetic to this and the next one. I understand the work that these community groups put in, and it's extremely valuable, but I do concur with Councillor Bland. The aspects are that it's warranted, it's deserved, it doesn't fit the current area, and yes, we can make exception, and I think potentially we should, but we need to tighten up our application aspects for these things to ensure that it is done in the best interest of everybody and that everybody clearly understands. Thank you.
Councillor Hill.
as I talked with the Tailem Bin Hub group, there's always emotion in these sorts of requests, and I am a fairly sympathetic person to small clubs and groups, having been in them myself over the years. We can tighten up the policy even further, but then you only have to have someone who feels that it needs to be, we can make another exception. We either have policies, because this isn't the only policy we have, and if we're going to make exceptions to policies, I feel sad for the other groups who haven't come forward and put their name forward to get a grant because they stuck to the rules. So, yes, I think if we're going to make exception on this occasion, it has to be the last time and not keep on going, oh, well, it's only a little bit, it's only a little bit here and there. These little bits here and there all add up, and that means someone else doesn't get a look in. So, yeah, I feel like will open the doors unless we really clamp down on the exceptions. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Anyone else, sorry, wants to speak for or against this motion?
Mr Mayor, I'd just like to point out a couple of things. In 2020, we underspent because we spent all our money in September, and there was only $8,000 left to go out in February, so we didn't do that. In 2018, we spent $7,000 over the budget. So, as you know, I point out many times here, policy means nothing within this council. It's there as something that's there, but it's only used when it suits us. Thank you.
Policy's a guide, councillor, as you know. Is there anyone else? Okay, I have a councillor Roundtree. You will close.
I'll close debate.
Okay, so the motion is as it reads that we allocate $2,752, being 50% of the total project costs, to the Tinanara Oval and Recreation Association Incorporated for their tennis club facility upgrade grant application, and that the budget adjustment be made for the grant funds that exceed the 2021-22 community grants budget. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried with 8 councillors for it, and Councillor Leng is voting against it. That's not carried unanimously, but it's carried, councillors. 712, Councillor Taylor. Yes.
I'll move that way.
Councillor Taylor moves. Councillor Jens, did I see your hand over there?
Correct. I'm happy to second.
Okay, Councillor Taylor, you wish to speak?
No, not really.
It's been well enunciated. Just councillors, so if this one was also to be successful, as a motion in a minute, it would mean an over budget of the 50,000 we normally allocate, or have normally the last 2 years, of $4,646.50 that we would be allocating or offering in this second round to those 2 clubs. Is there anyone else wants to speak for or against this motion, 712? Being none, you will close, councillor.
Close.
With the motion, all those in favour? Those against? It's carried with 8 councillors voting for it and Councillor Leng voting against it. Thank you, councillors. Motions without notice, councillors, 772. Councillor Roundtree, who asked me a question earlier about raising something out of the minute action list?
That was me, but you handled it administratively.
Oh, we're going to handle it administratively.
Yep.
Okay. Are there any motions without notice, councillors? There being none, I move on. Office of the CEO's report, 8.1, change of council meeting date, November 22. Councillors, Councillor Qualman, are you moving that way?
Yes, I am.
there a seconder? Councillor Taylor. Any debate? Go forward. Closing.
Close.
Closed. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Just for the public's thing, that's to push it back by a week to take account of a new council being in place in November and giving us more than one day to have the new councillors in office before it starts. Number 2, reconciliation plan. Item 2, the recommendation that council receive and note the report. Councillor Rountree, you moving that way?
I am.
Councillor Bland, are you the seconder?
I am, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank the staff and committee who have put together and succeeded
Mr Mayor,
with
could
this
I move
plan.
an amendment?
Yes.
I'd like to move that the council receive the report and send it out for public consultation, which was going to happen, but has not happened. It is in the spoken word in a previous meeting that it will go out for public consultation.
So through you, Mayor, the Reconciliation Action Plan is a document internal for staff. There was a committee with external members on it who had input into the plan, but it is not a document generally for public consultation.
So it's a staff plan,
Correct.
nothing to do with elected members, nothing to do with the ratepayers who are the council. The question, people are asking, what is this? What is this plan? What is the benefit is it? What is the outcome of it for the ratepayer?
So for the Reconciliation Action Plan is a public statement by council
Yes,
that the
I've read that.
organisation takes a leadership role in the issues to do with reconciliation and the Meningie people, in our case, and it's an inclusive document that states that as a leader in the organisation, we pay respect to our elders as we do in the beginning of council meetings, and that we demonstrate that by having tangible and practical actions in place to demonstrate that leadership.
Yeah, well, the other question being asked is the Meningie people are not entirely in the Couron area. And probably more of them are in Murray Bridge area and Meningie, Victor Harbour.
That may be the case, councillor, but this is about us internally going forward. This is what this is about. I'm sorry, I need a seconder. I need a seconder to the amendment.
Oh,
Sorry. Otherwise,
definitely not seconding
I've got an amendment. The point 2 would be that it goes out to public consultation. So if I don't get a seconder, it'll lapse. So your amendment has lapsed,
Yep.
councillor. Go back to the motion. Who was to speak for or against the motion or a second amendment?
can I ask a question, please?
You can ask a question.
Actually, I have two questions. On page 9, we refer to the 2016 census data, and that the new data is meant to come out at the end of June. Will that have any bearing? Do we have any idea, like, is that going to make any difference to the numbers that they talk about in key demographics?
So through you, Mayor, generally each census is showing an increase in population because people are feeling more and more comfortable to identify. Whether that's the case for the 2021 census, I'm only guessing. I really don't know. But generally, there's been an increase in identification.
Your second question?
My second question is, has council given any thought to offering a seat on council to a First Nations person and making that part of a policy that we did at least offer? They may not want to, but having availability there.
So, councillor, the electoral process for council is quite different.
Yep.
There's no restriction on any people from standing for council, and as you know, we have no wards coming into the next election, so that may allow people broader support in this area. So we're not in a position, in an electoral sense, to offer a position. What I would say is that we're having regular consultations now with Rauken and also with the Meningie NAC Aboriginal corporation. I am aware that there is other Aboriginal representative groups out there.
What I'm aiming at is I understand the electoral process, but as council as a whole, could we not have an advisory position on council that could be filled if they wanted to, rather than an elected member, which I understand the process? So can council do things like that?
Well, there's nothing to stop us having advisory groups. Some other councils do, and that could be on any number or range of issues. So that's where I think you're heading. If council wished, and perhaps I would say, given we've got only about 6 months left of this council, if a new council wished, that would be an option. I thought we were trying to rein in or get under control our Section 41s, but in terms of advisories, and there's plenty of advisory committees we may have, there is no particular reason. So, yes, you could do that. But at this stage, I think we're on a steady path of opening up or reconciling or with Indigenous Australians within this council area and the greater area. And if you look at that through several processes we're doing, like the visitor experience plan, for example, or, you know, there's several different committees where perhaps some of us as leaders have more interaction. Yeah, Councillor Lang, sorry.
Sorry, I've got to get that microphone button. Thank you, Chair. Your statement, paragraph 3 at the top, you state the reconciliation plan is a formal statement to reconciliation. I raise the question, should we include there reconciliation with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders?
So through you, Mayor, this plan has been to Reconciliation Australia 3 times, and so they're quite comfortable with the words as they are.
Okay, and second point, who takes ownership of the documentation in regard to, I refer to the statement made by Dawn Sumner, where it's only minor, but she has actually plagiarised a short phrase.
Councillor,
I know it's only minor.
Careful with the word plagiarise, please. Is that in this document, Councillor?
Yes, following your article, page 6.
Which paragraph, sorry?
Paragraph 2 talks about Narundari's body divided, which wasn't quite correct, but into 5 different environments that merge into one another: salt and water, country rui, riverine, lakes, bush and desert. That statement is actually taken from the Burton Burnt book, The World That Was, the Yaraldi.
So, Councillor, we probably need to receive our information from Reconciliation Australia. The second part is, this is the artist's description of it, not ours.
That's what I'm asking. Who takes ownership of the? Should there be any action, or should we just include inverted brackets?
Well, the artist is of Indigenous background, I gather.
Yes.
Yes.
Sure. And I would take it that she will take ownership of that.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? We're back on the recommendation that we receive and note the report. Councillor Still. Councillor Bland, you are the seconder. You haven't spoken yet.
I am happy with the report. I acknowledge that there may be some differences of opinions. However, I again congratulate the staff and the committee working together to get this to happen in a particularly good time frame.
Yeah, and you need to thank particularly Kelly, who led this one, I think, but has been pushed forward at a good pace.
I agree. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Roundtree, you're the close-up.
I just wanted to add thanks to the staff as well, and particularly Kelly for all the work. I think it's a great document, but I'm particularly loving that artwork. I have probably never seen anything so beautiful as that artwork. So congratulations to Summer Dawn on capturing that so beautifully. Question then, it'd be great if we could have that hanging in the council office. It's absolutely lovely, so.
Through you, Mayor, the intent is to launch it at Reconciliation Week. The artwork is sitting in my office and I'm tempted to steal it.
That's beautiful.
But it will be in the front of the council, and all council buildings will also have a plaque around reconciliation and
great
that
news.
print on it.
Fantastic. It's absolutely stunning, and I'll close debate.
Okay, item 8.2, I put the recommendation. All those in favour? Those against? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. 8.3. Federal election campaign. There is a recommendation, councillors. Councillor Bland, you're moving that way.
I am moving.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Roundtree. Any discussion? We recognise this is very late in the process. It would also probably be fair to recognise that this election has been perhaps one of the less entertaining ones I've seen in my life.
So, in closing, I'm just wondering,
That's very good of you.
am I closing?
Yeah, you can. I
In
think so.
closing, I'd just like to ask around point B, identify priority local projects. Have we been able to do that yet?
Well, we have, and we've been, as you would note, way back in the information document, we're told we're unsuccessful, which shows in relation to Heinrich Road and that process.
So we're moving some of those forward.
Well, we'll reconsider it pending the outcome next Saturday, I think, and reposition ourselves, and that's why the Labor Senator dropping in is important, that we not fall off the radar of any potential state or federal government. So, yeah, but I've felt that this federal election has been, I'm not quite sure what the right word is, councillors, but
Ordinary.
yeah. And I think, I don't know whether it's because we're in this aftermath of COVID, I don't know what it is. But, we'll go on, and as we had in the workshop this morning, discussions around, or this afternoon, around funding for sports bodies in this area and our federal politicians, we'll go on working with them to see what we can achieve. And when we get to the business plan, adopting that, you'll note that we've got many plans underway now, streetscapes and the like, that will start lobbying for funding in the next term, whoever is in this building.
Closed.
Closed. Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 9, council policies. There is none. Number 10, section 41, committees. There is a recommendation that we receive the minutes of the Couron Infrastructure and Assets Committee meeting on the 26th of April. Is there a mover that way, please? Councillors Roundtree and Arthur. Councillor Corman, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr Mayor. In the minutes section 009/22 motions without notice, move Mayor Simmons, second Councillor Corman, that options be investigated to reduce the speed limits on service roads within Tarleton Bend Princess Highway corridor down to 40 kilometres per hour. Through the chair to the Director of Roads and Infrastructure, I do notice there is a traffic counter on the southern end of the western side, Princess Highway Access Road, just north of the Riverside Hotel. Is it intended that we shift that in some different locations because there is 4 exits and 4 entrances along that piece of road?
Yep.
To get more of an accurate monitoring of speed.
The key thing to going back to the department about speed limit is having the data, so we are looking to put it in multiple locations, so we've got some pretty good information to justify our argument to reduce the speed limit.
Thank you. I just had a ratepayer ask that very question. Appreciate that.
Any discussion around the minutes of those meetings, councillors? You'll close, Councillor Roundtree.
Closed.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 2, Couron Finance Committee meeting, minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of May 2022. Shall I move that way? Councillor Bland and Councillor Qualman, are you the seconder? And for the public's information, there was a further workshop around the budget this morning to sort of answer some more queries, which I hope the councillors found interesting. Any debate around those minutes at all? Being the case, you're closing, councillor, you're done?
Closed.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 3, the Tail and Bend Town Hall Committee, minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of March. Don't rush me. Someone move that way. Councillor Qualman, thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bland. Is there any discussion? Councillor Qualman, you got a question?
Yes, I have a question, or actually alteration, Mr Mayor. I arrived 5 minutes late to this meeting. In the minutes it's got shown as apologies, Councillor Breton Corman, I was actually there. It just, okay?
So through you, Mayor, these are not our minutes.
Oh,
So
well, just
we
letting
will-
you know, yeah. Yeah,
We will make a notation.
yeah, I'm aware of that, thank you.
Councillor Roundtree.
I note that that the committees themselves get the Section 41 Committee Action Register. Will elected members still get a copy or get to see that register as well?
I think, Ashley, you're quite right. You want to tell them that it's buried in the information
It's in the
document
info
near the
doc,
end,
everyone.
councillor.
Is it?
I know your harvest is busy.
Oh, I am harvesting.
Ashley, am I correct?
You're correct, Mayor. It's in the community corporate section.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Ash.
Information document, councillors, has enormous, it's getting more information in it. I mean, many hours.
Go back through, sorry, to pick up on the Tail and Bend Town. We're still on the Town Hall.
Well, you're the seconder, yeah.
And that is that we have Councillor Travis. We should just maybe
I would take it that that's one of our council officers.
It is,
That's
Travis.
what I took it
Travis
as.
has now been, he probably doesn't want to work
Yeah.
as
Well,
he is, but
he wasn't
we
looking
just
for
let
that
them know.
demotion, you're saying, councillor?
just let them know. It's not an issue.
It is their minutes, but we are required to receive them as a Section 41.
Mr Mayor, if I may, we had a sit-in minute taker on that particular meeting, so
All right.
never mind.
Everyone's got to do it, learn it somehow. I think you're closing, councillor Corman.
Yes.
Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. I'll move on to 11.1. This is Community and Corporate Report. Delegations Update, Planning, Development and Infrastructure Act.
Mr Mayor, can I just have a short break?
You want to leave the... You leave and we'll have a break in a minute. We will adopt this, unless you want to debate this 500 pages.
Well, I would like to have someone speak to it.
All right. While it's unusual, since you've asked, we'll have a short break. For 10 minutes, we'll leave at the meeting. Okay. It's unusual to stop in the middle of a motion, councillors, but... Councillor Ling, are you still with us? Yes, he's waving. Councillor Bland is back in the room. We resume at 4:21. We're on item 11. One delegations update is a recommendation. Did I not even get a mover and a seconder? He is not. Councillor Bland, did you have a question though? That was the reason I think we stopped.
I would just like someone to speak. I mean, there's a lot of information here, and maybe if we could just have a short overview of any of the particular changes that are of concern. Perhaps I've...
Thank you, Councillor.
Through the Chair, any change to the Act is likely, so the Planning Development Infrastructure Act, is likely to bring about a change to delegations. In this particular case, it relates to the fact that the previous minister was also the Attorney General, and the current minister is just Planning Minister, and that's been a change to the Act, would you believe? Yes. And hence it does change delegations. So it's an absolute minor technicality, but it does trigger, with the complexity we have with the instruments, it does trigger the requirement for delegation update. And we can't do it without coming to council. We have to come to council for this.
So through you, Mayor, the changes are around titles probably more than, but no changes to actually what people do. Correct, Miles?
Yes, absolutely. Simple as that.
Simple as that. Thank you.
Is there a mover?
Happy to move it. Thanks.
Is there, Councillor Bland moves and Councillor Roundtree is the seconder. Is there any discussion further to that explanation? There being none, I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Item 2, 21-22 Annual Business Plan Third Quarter Review. Let's find it first. That was a big report. Is someone prepared to move that, or does...
I have some questions.
You have some questions? We'll start with questions then, please.
I've got a couple. So regarding the 28 actions deliverables outlined in the 21-22 plan and only 8 having been completed, are we likely to complete these by June 22, or are they going to be carried over to 22-23?
Depends on what they are. Some of them will be carried over. Just if you ask me about a particular one, we can talk about it. But
I don't think it's, well, there's no indication on the list which ones are, well, I suppose it says that they're completed, but it talks about in there 3 that were carried over from the previous year as well. I think, so where I was going to go is actually going to be handy if it's somewhere on that report indicated which financial year it comes from, because I think there was 3 from 2021 that were carried over, but I can't pick which ones they are from just looking at the document. That makes sense? Yeah.
I am not thinking about 3 that were carried over, but I'm not doubting that either.
It just says in there that 3. It says in the document.
So they would have been in the ABP that we would have...
Yeah.
The RAP is a good example of that. So it was in the original ABP in the 1920 when I started here. It was again in the 2021, and we've only got to it in the 21-22 year. So that is a good example of things that sometimes will keep moving through this ABP.
So in the report through you, Mayor, can it be identified which financial year it's come from?
Yes, we can do that. What we might do, but is put ones that are carried over rather and assume that all the others are in the current ABP. So,
Okay.
Yep.
All right. My next question then was with regards to, on page 35, so regards to the Meningie skate park, do we have a final amount for what that noise will cost?
Well, councillor, that's still subject to a process.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure we are in a position.
I'm not sure we are in a position, or B should be in a position to answer it.
Should it be out here in this, in public? It's certainly well known about.
And it was in the document, about the noise wall was in the document.
But there is still a process to go. That
Process.
is, I think, public knowledge, but anything else I would hesitate,
Okay.
but I'll take advice from Miles.
No worries.
Councillor Roundtree, you asked, did you ask about the cost of the wall?
Yeah, have
Is
we
that
got
it?
a final for the cost of the wall?
No, we haven't got a firm cost, but
Okay.
what we've been able to determine is that the materials that we can use, which will meet the acoustic engineering requirements, aren't as potentially expensive as we originally thought, so
That's good news.
cost is manageable.
Thank you. Third question, where it says revise and refresh the Couron brand. This is on page 37. My experience, anytime corporate branding is undertaken, it just results in things being tossed out and costing money. So I'd like to know if there's an amount for this rebranding exercise.
So through you, Mayor, that is one that we have parked. We just haven't had the space to do that. It will probably, not probably, but it now makes sense, given the cycle that we're in, to bring that back to the new council. The intent is more that we have some consistency of design across all of our towns. So if we're putting a playground in Peak, or we're putting a playground down the road, there's some look and feel that's the same, so people know that they're in the Couron District Council area.
Don't we have that now through you, Mayor?
We do, but it's, I would say, a loose interpretation.
Okay. And my last question is page 39, identifying efficiencies. I think it's really important, probably more so than rebranding. It says, will a report be to council in 6 months? So you're saying over the next 3 to 6 months, you'll look at identifying efficiencies? Is it likely we will see what perhaps those
Councillors, you're aware
efficiencies?
that Synergy Soft's been in action for, what, 2.5, 3 months now?
Yep.
I think you'll see some comments in the documents that they're starting to show, or have the ability to show, where money is being spent or where money could be saved. I think it's probably a bit early yet
Bit early?
to really,
Thank you.
but I think I noted it, reading some document in this last 24 hours, that, I think that was the purpose of the new system, was one of them was to identify savings, and be ongoing.
No worries, thank you.
I'm waiting for Arthur, you had your arm up or down, or did you wave?
I just thought,
Just knock the thing off the microphone.
Mr Mayor, through you.
Your question, or you're going to move it?
Question to the CEO. We've got proceeds from borrowing $900,000. Why would we have to borrow $900,000 when we've got a fair bit of money in the kitty?
And that is the 900,000 that's earmarked for the high-risk intersections. What page are you on? But that's 900.
Page 3.
Is the,
You're on the next, I think you're on the next one.
are you on the, are we on the right?
We'll be on the next one, councillor.
Hey, I'm on the next
Third quarter review of the business
Sorry,
plan,
I'm
item
ahead
2.
again. I'm ahead again.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
I'm happy to
Councillor
move.
Bland before councillor Roundtree.
I was
Oh,
just
here
going
we
to
go.
move it, that's
Oh,
all.
there you go, happy to second.
Well, I'll take councillor Bland as the mover.
Let's flick straight past it.
Councillor Roundtree as the seconder, with their permission.
Yes.
Is there any other questions or debate? Start with questions around that third quarter review, councillors. Being none, there's no debate. I'm going to move to councillor Bland closing.
Closed, I think we've done this quite a bit recently, so I'm confident that we've moved forward. Thank you.
All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 3, budget review. Number 3, councillor Arthur, you now have your day.
Page 3.
There's
There's $900,000 proceeds from borrowings. I wouldn't have thought we had borrowed. We still had $2.3 million in kitty.
Through you, Mayor, remembering that is the amount we've earmarked that we may need to borrow, not may, but we will borrow once the high-risk intersection money is required. So at this point, we're still waiting for the Commonwealth Government and the grant funding process. So I'm not expecting that we will need to borrow any in this financial year, because I'm not expecting we'll get the grant from the high-risk intersections. There's no timeline of when that's going to be announced. The federal election is only happening on Saturday. The good thing is that it's actually in the budget, the Commonwealth budget, for the next 5 years, so we're certain that the grant still exists, but it's been a long time coming. That $900 we will back out for the 2022-23 year and come back to council if we require it. It just really is the amount hanging around that was endorsed by council probably 18 months ago now.
The councillor, this council hasn't borrowed any money by decision of this council. In the first
Oh, I know.
few months, we borrowed $500,000 for Cooldy Road to be widened. Since then, we actually haven't borrowed any money. No. Budget review 3, I'm on. Councillors' questions or someone move that way, please. The recommendation, Councillor Qualman. Seconder, Councillor Roundtree, or your question?
Seconding.
Is there any debate around budget review 3 and where it's heading? There being none, you will close. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 4, 2022-23 schedule of charges. Fees and charges. There's a recommendation there, councillors. Someone prepared to move that for purpose of debate? Councillor Yench. Is there a seconder? Councillor Roundtree. Questions, councillors? There's been some revisions, I think, as foreshadowed a week or so ago in a workshop. Everyone happy with every part of that?
Wrong question.
No.
We're never happy when we put fees
Well,
up.
councillor, sometimes I ask you if you're totally happy. I know that, but
Happy when
I live in hope.
ratepayers.
Councillor Qualmer, don't disappoint me.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, and thanks to Miles and the elected members this morning, we had a workshop and we went through this, and in this particular section on the waste charges irked me a little bit, and I might as well speak up on it again now that we've been recorded in the chamber of an ordinary meeting. I feel that it's important that we make sure that this our intent goes out to the community and the consultation, and they are aware that we've had to put charges in. And while we're talking why we had to put charges, can someone provide me why specifically we had to incur these new additional charges of green waste at our transfer stations, please?
I think Matt gave a good
So
discussion this morning. so
whoever wants to
perhaps
answer that question, they're welcome
Matt
to.
might like to repeat
Matt?
it.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. It costs council between $30,000 and $40,000 a year to address our green waste that is disposed of at our waste transfer stations, which previously had no charge. We could continue to have no charge, which would then be a burden on the entire ratepayer or community on addressing that cost. So it's a fee for charge. I guess that's the bottom line. It's user pays rather than all ratepayers pay for the service.
You got any idea roughly how much this costs, what the costs are, extra costs we're incurring now?
Yeah, through the chair, approximately between $30,000 and $40,000 a year, depending on the year. But that's the cost that we need to incur to have a contract come in and post-process the green waste that is disposed of at the waste transfer station.
I think councillor's question was probably more, perhaps a matter of if we can record it, how much money we'll receive over 12 months because of this charge. Is that?
Yes.
Because that'll be an interesting reflection on, and not perhaps mixed up with all the other charges.
So at this point, through you, Mayor, we don't know that, but we can bring
we
a
don't know
report to
now.
council in 6 months' time to
See what?
show what the use is.
Thank you. Right.
Can I go with Councillor Taylor first, though?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So my biggest concern is by implementing charges on waste of any description, when you're looking at people on low incomes or reduced incomes, there could be more of a tendency for, let's say, more mattresses by the side of the road or more appliances by the side of the road. Is there anything in here which addresses those people who are on low income or concession card holders, etc.?
Councillor, I've been brought to my attention that there is, well, I won't say it's massive, but a 10% discount for seniors or concession card holders in these fees.
10% isn't a lot, though, is it?
No, I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying there is.
So it is my concern that,
Yeah.
that perhaps there's not enough done for those who are in the lower financial demographic. We're trying to encourage responsibility when it comes to disposal of waste. And it's just a big concern that we're adding charges here. And we do not, we want to encourage people to dispose of their waste correctly rather than to discourage them.
Councillor, while I do have a mover and seconder, you could move an amendment if you wanted that to be higher. At the moment it's set at 10%, just hang on a second. Matt?
Through you, Mayor, if you look through the rates proposed for next financial year in comparison to previous financial years, there's very little change. Mattresses were previously charged at a single rate, so if you took a cot mattress or a king-size bed mattress, you'd be charged the same. We've included more scales to enable people to understand what their costs are going to be to dispose of. The costs are also in line with disposal rates across the region, and that includes councils in the Riverland, Alexandrina, councils south of here. The only change of any material nature is the introduction of green waste.
So respectfully, I've never been one that likes the commentary around let's compare ourselves to everyone in the South Australia, whether they be because you can cherry pick who you like in order to make the argument fit. I'm not saying that I'm not suggesting that's what you're doing. It is a concern though.
Are you not prepared to move an amendment to change that concession rate?
Well, I'm just looking at the fact that we're sending it out for community consultation. So at the moment, it's schedule of fees and charges released for community consultation. So I still think there's scope for amendment document.
Discussions noted.
Mr Mayor, can I just, normally when any business or local government puts up a fee, they've got a reason for it. They've done their sums on what it's actually costing. Now, if our system's changing and this is subject to something that we haven't got the report back yet, is whether the EPA is satisfied with the way that the Tailem Ben waste transfer station has been rehabilitated, because that was what a lot of our waste, our green waste, was going there. If it's not going there now, and at what has happened, surely the green waste will be picked up and it will be processed on site, which it is now, and in heaps. I suppose we cart it away because the heaps go, and it'll probably go to Pete's or someone like that for a thing. So I can't really see where there's going to be a big increase in handling the green waste, particularly at Meningie and Tidanara, because it's already being carted, processed and carted to Tailem Ben. And I think this is going to be a very, very unpopular charge, to be quite honest with you, particularly on the older people who are just, like, you could come in with 10 sticks of an apricot tree and it looks like a load, but it's 5 kilos.
So Councillor, as you know, we still have, as part of our rubbish service for all people that live in residential areas, a green waste bin.
Yep.
So there's no reason why people can't put it in the green waste bin as well.
I realise that, but most people can't. And the green waste bin's probably not big enough.
I know it means more chopping.
And the other point I make now, will the green waste be taking the food scraps?
Not at this stage. It's not where we're...
So still not at this stage?
No, that's a separate stage of a process in the future, I think, to be fair to say. I'll just pull you back to a statement you made, and I'm going to look at Matt. Have we got to the point with the Tailem Bend site that we no longer need to go on putting more material on top of the old dump site?
Through Mel, we don't need to. We can continue to. The point is that it costs us to process the waste that is delivered to the waste transfer stations to use wherever we use it. It could go to Pete's, it could go to another processing plant, it can go onto the landfill capping. the issue is that it costs us to process that material. So the argument of putting in a cost for green waste is that the people who take green waste to the waste transfer stations pay for that service rather than the entire rate population. That's the only argument. If we choose to remove the green waste, then all ratepayers burden that cost. That's the argument behind it. There's no right or wrong answer. That's it. It's either all ratepayers pay or only the people that use a green waste service.
And the important thing I think to remember is that we do have the green bins. Now, it might be a conversation that we come back to you at some point over the next 12 months and say we should pick up the green bins once a week rather than once a fortnight. Now, that might be a different way of handling the same issue, but at this point, there are two options. People do have the option of using the green bin or taking their waste to the tip.
Mr Mayor.
Councillor Taylor.
Sorry.
Yeah, and then you.
So respectfully, Mayor, all ratepayers pay for all roads, libraries and other assorted services which council provides as well. So I'm just not convinced around the, all ratepayers shouldn't be paying for A, B, C, whatever it is. It's a service, it's an essential service of council, and I'm just not convinced that the charges sit in quite the right form as
I'll
yet.
convince some councillors who you wish to move an amendment.
Question?
Mr Mayor, this is only
No,
going out for
no,
consultation anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Councillor Bland.
A question through you, Mr Mayor, to Director of Infrastructure.
Yes, but just got to wait to get their attention, councillor.
It's all right, I'll wait. Just a moment ago, you talked about capping, and we could continue to cap at Tail and Bend of the, when a phrase, dump site. Have we got EPA clearance not to? I understood that, so when you say we don't have to, but we could, I'm not clear of the parameters around EPA.
It's a convenience.
I'm still confused, sorry.
So I think you're asking, do we need EPA approval legislatively to stop putting the
Yes.
green waste in there? Is that the question, councillor?
Don't know the answer to that.
Perhaps we might find that answer.
We will take that on notice.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. The recommendation is that the draft 22-23 schedule of fees and charges be released for community consultation in conjunction with the draft 22-23 annual business plan and budget. There's no more debate or discussion or questions. Councillor.
I'll finish by saying, Mr Mayor, that we still have other quarries and things that may require this material down the track. The bottom line is it's going out for public consultation. We can speculate in the chamber the number of people who would be unhappy with the charges, but let's put it out and find out exactly who is unhappy and how unhappy they are. So we will be corrected by the people we serve.
Thank you. That debate's closed. I put the motion. All those in favour? All those in favour, please. Those against? So, councillors, I'll go with the against is easiest. Councillors Qualman and Taylor voted against the motion, which means councillors Simmons, Yench, Arthur, Rountree, Hill and Bland voted in favour. That motion is carried. Councillor Lang, are you waving at me or is it... You need to unmute. Oh, you got... So
I did vote in favour.
Yeah, no, sorry. Councillor Lang also voted in favour. The next item is the draft business plan and budget, and I've just asked our deputation, and they're happy to wait till 5 o'clock, councillors. Number 5, draft annual business plan and budget. Little things are. Councillor Rountree.
Happy to move.
You're happy to move that the draft annual business plan and budget be endorsed for public consultation between the 19th of May and the 10th of June 2022 inclusive. Councillor Taylor, you the seconder.
I am.
Thank you.
Question?
Yes, question, Councillor Bland.
And I'm sorry to do it here, I did mention it this morning, but you weren't in the room, and that is in your message,
Yes.
whether you might put a little bit more in there about the issues around water.
As a budgetary issue.
No, I'm looking at no, in your actual message from the Mayor.
As that one. So this is for public consultation, the business plan?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I don't think at this stage, Councillor, I think this is about the council's internal budget with all, not necessarily that broader statement around water.
Sorry, you've mentioned a number of things, that's why I felt that.
Yeah, and I noticed in a different paragraph further on, I do mention Dues visitation plan.
Yes.
As what I would see as the next group of things that councillors can debate about how we are in the public realm or the public parks or the public whatever. I think advocacy around the River Murray and water is a separate thing to the business plan.
I believe the water is a significant business of council, however, I'm happy to leave that go. Thank you.
In a budgetary sense, Councillor.
It certainly will be in the long term if we don't.
May well be. Take your point. Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The public consultation part, and it's got various dates there for Tintinara, Meningie, Peak and Tarlan Bend. I've been asked by a few ratepayers around Tarlan Bend who are unaware of this information session. How was the information distributed, or when was it distributed, and how, like electronically, or why wasn't it some going through the old means like the paper, hard copy?
Councillor,
please.
I also, only some little time ago, was asked that same question. One of the issues we have is the timeframes around our 3 local newsletters. And also, the reality is, until this is adopted, it's a bit hard to advertise that we're going out for public consultation, because council may choose not to adopt it for public consultation. So if we could recognise that our timeframes have been pretty tight this year due to the COVID staffing issues and all that, I understand that. I have had a conversation in that break before the CEO around what I would describe as the notice boards of each town or each post office and something up.
Yes.
That's where I think you're heading, and that's where we do. And Ashley's going to say something.
Through you, Mayor, I will confirm that it was in that the 3 local publications for May. So there was an ad included in council's article. We only talked about the information sessions and not the budget itself, because it hasn't been adopted yet.
Yeah.
It did also go out into our In Touch with the Community last monthly newsletter, and we're now in the process of getting the posters and things out there.
So, Councillor, I think you're probably referring to the posters instead of the newsletters. I suppose, given that those 3 newsletters are distributed widely and freely, perhaps, I don't know how we make it more obvious in our particular article, which we pay for and sponsor, that we are doing this.
Well, I think, Mr Mayor, us and the fellow councillors will have to start by mouth distributing the information, won't we?
I'm sure some do. But the point, it is difficult to get to everyone in the means of which they feel they should be informed.
Yes. I just thought I'd ask the question. I do realise that, but just for the people out there listening now, makes them aware that we're trying to get the information out, and that's one little thing I would like to see happen. It's my little bugbear that doesn't happen enough, but when things are too tight, you just can't get it done sometimes. Thank you.
So, Councillor Roundtree, if you've moved that way, you'll close.
Yes, so I will close. Just the comments that we made today about justification and editing, a few things like that, those will be taken into consideration.
So you made, there was a couple of suggestions, not in terms of materiality from the Audit and Risk Committee, that we will change in or amend in the document itself.
The
But in
design.
terms of significance, it's not there.
So I'm happy to close on that basis.
Debate's closed. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That is carried unanimously. Item 6, grant of lease to the Meningie Sailing Club.
Mayor.
I've seen Councillor Leng's hand, I believe, first, Councillor Inch. I'll find it. Councillor Leng, you are wishing to move it, I presume. You've got a nodding, and you'll be the second.
Yes.
Councillor Yench, if you
Yes,
wish to
thank
be.
you.
You wish to speak, Councillor Leng?
Not at this time, thank you.
Councillor Yench?
No, thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak to this lease renewal?
I'll just ask one question about this. The actual boat ramp, is that part of their lease or is that our responsibility? How does that go? I can't sort of work it out here.
It's not their lease.
Being colourblind, it doesn't.
Not
It's not
their
their
lease.
lease, is it? It's ours.
Sorry?
Miles?
So the small portion you see that's shaded that leads to the lake is part of their lease package. So that shaded area is part of their lease package.
But it doesn't, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, that doesn't lead to any boat ramp.
No.
Correct.
So there is no boat ramp
There's
or
no
jetty
boat ramp,
included
no.
in this lease.
So in other words, the boat ramp is a public ramp.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's
Thank
two boat ramps there, actually.
Well,
Be that as it may, the boat ramp for the purpose of this debate around the lease
Yes.
is not included.
Correct.
Anyone else wish to speak for or against this motion? 21-year lease, 21 plus 21, in accordance with their policy. Closing, Councillor Yench.
No.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, that's fine. No, they are, the Meningie Sailing Club is a very good community group and worthy of continuation. Thank you. Close.
Councillor, thank you, Council. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. (53). Okay, at this point I want to bring forward item 14, the permission of the meeting, or the leave of the meeting, which is a deputation led by Mr Tim Overett from Meningie around the formation of a community centre in Meningie. Tim, you're more than welcome to come and sit up here. Have we got a PowerPoint presentation, Ashley? Tim, we have. I'll seek councillors' indulgence now around this subject. Normally a deputation is a 10-minute limit. Is councillors happy to give Tim a little bit more time if he needs? I'm taking that as a yes. Tim, welcome. Welcome, and you need to speak to the mic, whether you like it or not. Are we ready to go, Ash? Welcome, and councillors will ask questions. Do you want questions as we go or at the end?
I think prefer at the end, please.
Whatever you like.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor and councillors and CEO and staff for this opportunity. You've got my name. I am here purely as a private citizen. I got asked to attend a meeting which Kelly, I think, convened initially and said a few words, and I probably should have kept quiet, but it appears that that's what's led us here. So we thank you, the council staff, for what they've done, which led up to this point. I happen also to be the president of the RSL, but it's not really a big deal compared to the rest of you. We only have a electorship of about 40 people and nobody else wants the job. And then I have in our delegation two ladies, Ms. Wong, Ms. Irene Wong, who's resident of Meningie, and Ms. Helena Reid, who's also a resident of Meningie, and they both have been active in community learning or community centre activities in the past. I personally have not, but in the sense that I run a fair number of activities at the RSL, I think that has some relevance. So, yeah, if I've called this a pencil sketch because anything may need to be rubbed out. So it's very much a tentative piece of work. It's had a bit of refinement from, with help from colleagues, others who are here today, but it's not set in concrete. So if you can understand, we're at a very much of a seedling stage. I call our group at this stage a seeding group. And so if we could go on to the next slide, thank you. So what I wish to present to you is a vision of a Meningie community centre and what its mission is. So basically to enhance the sense of belonging to Meningie and its surrounding communities by the sharing of available resources, both capital and human. And then to provide a human and administrative structure in conjunction with the Tail and Bend Community Centre, and then to preserve and enhance the capital assets available within the Wadmore House precinct. We'll come to closer definitions of that in due course. And then to attract residents of and visitors to the Meningie area in sync with its growing population and growing popularity. Thank you. To enhance, this is further on the mission, to enhance and take advantage of the immediate surroundings, given Meningie's great location, being on a federal highway, carrying a lot of travellers and tourists, and its potential for business and employment opportunities. Then to provide a local home for existing community services which are already being delivered from other parts of this district. Thank you. Just a street side picture of the area that we're talking about. I'm sure you are most familiar with that. But so on the left there you see the house and what's called Wadmore House, and to its right a corridor of land going through to Bonnie Street, and there are about 5 titles involved there. I don't know all the details of exactly who holds those titles, but that's not so important. Thanks. Next one. Now, I've got a couple of slides with 2 columns here, completed on the left and what to do soon on the right. So what's completed is the community ideas, which you are probably familiar with because it was published internally as the Wadmore House Findings Report. And so that is a basis of this presentation as well. We have also compiled a list of contributors those are individuals or organisations that we feel could feed into the human resource side of this venture. And then what has also happened, and I believe you're aware of this, is that the Tail and Bend Community Centre has agreed to accommodating a Meningie subgroup within its structure, which saves Meningie a lot of time in setting up from grassroots, from a blank page. So what we expect to do soon, and we have a number of points here, and then I'll expand on each point as we progress. So to develop an overarching proposal with the Couron District Council, and then establish banking and decision-making processes, both internal to the community centre and with yourselves. Possibly a board of management or some sort of subcommittee which will run Meningie, prioritise options for use of Wadmore House and the precinct, the surrounding land. We will need to list the current land usages and any restrictions that may apply to any of those 5 titles, and if necessary, apply to yourselves for changes. Then to recruit volunteers and apply for funding, and finally to consult with affected neighbours. Thank you. So this is a reminder of what you've seen before, and obviously the biggest number of responses to that survey was for a community centre. So that's where we're heading. And then there's a bit of a bar chart underneath. We won't go into the detail of that, but if I can make the point that we can see where the numbers are for the different ideas of what this property could be used for. But I have to say that the very best idea, or the idea that may be the most influential on this property, may be one very far down the list, or something that's not even there. Because I think this is a sample of what the community is interested in having done there, but it's not necessarily a referendum on what actually should happen there. But it gives any committee forming an idea of where to go from this. Thanks. So establishing banking and decision-making processes, because as a group of seedlings, we have nothing at this stage. So we need to determine what consent is needed from the Meningie community in general, and then from perhaps participating groups and neighbours to the community centre. Also, how to interact and make decisions with the Tail and Bend Community Centre, yourselves, and if necessary, even the South Australia government. Then to liaise with I like to think of it as the district community centre, because Tail and Bend kind of understates it, doesn't it? It does deliver a much wider service than just Tail and Bend about our banking arrangements. And then to call an establishing general meeting, and to call for office bearers and banking signatories. And I'm thinking of possibly doing this in terms of an expression, looking for expressions of interest for people who wish to hold portfolios, not just people to be a presence on a committee, but to actually hold a portfolio for which they become responsible. Thank you. So the Board of Management, the source, I imagine, is existing volunteers in the town, and for us to make an outreach for further people according to their potential, the potential that they have to contribute as organisations or individuals. Now, I understand some community centres have a membership, and I'm thinking, well, why can't both organisations why cannot organisations be members just as well as individuals be members? And then offer financial membership to those people who wish to join, both groups and individuals. And just give you an example of thinking is that if it's found that there's some reluctance for people to participate, well, maybe we'll throw out a few incentives there, such as a point system whereby people lending their resources to the community centre can get some reward on the basis of the time that they put in, or the time and the effort or achievements that they put into the development. And then develop awareness of the role and benefits of a community centre. So listing the current land uses and restrictions, and then apply for changes. The managing board would need to know any current zoning opportunities or limitations, and then look for the best use of the available land and assets, ensure compliance with requirements in terms of the building codes, and then clarify who's responsible for funding each upgrade to comply or build. Now, on the funding issue there, I understand that the council is going into a budget
Now.
very soon, yes, very shortly. So we do ask that...
As I've told 20 minutes ago.
I'm
just going to hold you up for a sec. Sorry, councillors. I do actually need a resolution of council to continue a deputation. So Councillor Yench and Councillor Bland I'll say at least another 10, I'll say 15, up to 15 minutes, please.
Yes.
Councillors, all those in favour? As against, that's carried unanimously. Sorry, Tim, we just got to formalise that. Continue. You got the money and I had to stop you.
Yes, I apologise for going over my time. So, yes, if there's any way that decisions need to or can be made in favour of some progress with the Wadmore House and its precinct, we would very much appreciate that. Although we have an open mind for funding, some we imagine may come from council and some may come from external sources by way of fundraising or raising of grants. Thank you. Then recruit volunteers, apply for funding. So we'd obviously have to put it out there what work we need done, what people need to have in order to do that work, so selection criteria. And then we imagine that people already providing services to Meningie via the Tail and Bend Community Centre will continue to be involved and will have a base in Meningie. New resource people from Meningie and District will be recruited, and we would like to have a principle of encouraging diversity and inclusion and integration, rather than splitting up on any ethnic grounds particularly. But obviously the council knows what is meant by diversity and inclusion, and we go with that. And then to find funding options available and explore commercial possibilities, some of which may be for the benefit of the council or possibly for the community centre, depending on the nature of that activity. Thanks. And then obviously consulting with neighbours if there could be nuisance factors. And we just believe in talking to people, knocking on doors, having drop-in sessions, and if there are objections, probing people's real needs and concerns where they're raised, and then try to provide creative options to resolve